Okay, great. And then Amy, do you want to see if you can get up your presentation?
Sure, let's see. Looks like it worked for me. Did it work for everybody else?
Yeah.
Yep, looks good.
Okay. I thank you for inviting me. I think this is the second time now I've given a presentation, so it's nice to be coming back to the Fire Council and giving an update. I represent the city of Durango, but really I'm part of a partnership. So I wanted to make sure that I share logos of everybody that's involved in the fire mitigation efforts that the city is taking on. That partnership obviously includes Wildfire Adapted Partnership. Then we also have great fire experts from Durango Fire Protection District, Colorado Division of Fire Prevention and Control, the BLM, Colorado State Forest Service, the San Juan National Forest, La Plata County, and La Plata Electric Association. So just wanted to make sure I give a shout out to all those great partners before moving on to the bits and pieces. So again, my name is Amy Schwartzbach. I'm the Natural Resources Manager for the city of Durango, housed in our Parks and Recreation Department. And coming out of the 416 fire back in 2018, we heard the Durango community loudly and clearly that they wanted to see the city and other land managers address the risk of fire to our community. Our focus has been in the wildland urban interface that is located on city-owned properties. So that's how I come into the mix. City of Durango owns about half of the land acreage within city limits. And we have a heck of a lot of wildland urban interface where our mountain parks abut the highest density residential districts for the Durango area. Let's see if I can remember which way my slides go. So the work we've been doing has been funded to date. We've received grant awards through the BLM and the Colorado State Forest Service, which is wonderful. So the city has an open space sales tax that allows us to do stewardship projects on our lands. That obviously has some limited restrictions on how you can use the land, or sorry, use the money. And then we have a whole heck of a lot of projects going on. So what we were able to do is leverage our open space sales tax in applying for these different funding opportunities. And the heavy lift absolutely is coming from our partnership with the BLM. The grant we have is actually a 4-year grant award and luckily did not require a cash match. So that allowed us to use that resource that we have to seek other grant funds, and that's where our Colorado State Forest Service grant award comes in, which is wonderful because the wildland urban interface that we're looking at comes with a lot of tricks and challenges. This is an overview of our primary treatment areas. In this map, you'll see that light green indicates the city-owned lands. Mm-hmm. Our largest adjacent partner is the BLM, which is wonderful and part of why our partnership is so valuable and important. And then when you look at those bold colors, that gets into the treatment areas that we've been working on. So the purple area in kind of the bottom right corner, we completed that treatment area back in 2020. That really has become our showcase and kind of educational demonstration site. That work was done primarily with Sawyer crews from Durango Fire Protection District and the state. And as we were engaging the public, seeking grant opportunities, it's been a great place for our community to see that reducing the risk of fire does not equal clear cutting, but it does, that was a big concern for us. So now that we've had that treatment area, folks can go out there and see that it's selective thinning, it's reducing the risk of fire, it does not immediately introduce weed infestation, it's not risking slope stability. We had all kinds of very valid concerns and questions from our community. So that treatment area, I love including it on a map. I love that it's easy to get to if anybody would like to go out and see what those areas, what our treatment areas look like. And then what we've moved forward into this calendar year, 2021, is shown in dark blue. We did put that out to bid. Those treatment areas, it's about nine treatment areas for a total of 38 acres. That is being funded through our BLM grant award. And it's definitely no one size fits all. Those areas are a mix of vegetation types. They are a mix of very steep terrain, very loose hillsides, very limited vehicular access. We do have a couple of hiking and biking recreational trails running through a couple of those areas. So as we continue to expand where we're reducing risk of fuel, we are continuing to interact with a whole heck of a lot of Durango residents. So that's been wonderful in raising awareness. Those blue treatment areas, my contractors, if you can see my cursor here, they are now in this little area up here and hope to be done by the end of the week. That will complete our 2021 treatment that's shown here in blue. So I'm very excited to be reporting that. Those Sawyer crews, they had hoped to expand their Sawyer crew for the summer. Like just about every other employer in the world, they did not receive a lot of applications. So I've been very happy that they're still on track for a November completion. They had originally hoped to be done mid-summer, but did not receive any applications. So it's been a heavy lift for just two guys and a chainsaw and chainsaws out there. But all of those areas, if you live in and around Durango, as you hike and bike those trails, you'll see a lot of piles that have been created. The majority of treatment used in those zones has been to cut and pile. Where we've been able to get chippers in, we did have them chip and haul the chips off site. And then there are two treatment areas that are at the base of Animas Mountain where we did lop and scatter. That was a decision made based on stability of the hillside and limited ability to go back and burn the piles in the future. So again, a true mix of treatment types. We've been focusing on selective thinning, and the scope of work for all of these treatment areas, generally speaking, is the reduction of about 40 to 60% of Gamble oak in those areas. Some of these areas were incredibly thick with Gamble oak. That purple was solid Gamble oak. The blue treatment areas along Power Line Trail in Horse Gulch, these were incredibly dense stands of Gamble oak. And then up here in Overend, same thing. So it's been great for raising awareness. It is great as a land manager to be going into those areas that we haven't historically treated. It's been very challenging given the terrain and that density of fuels. So great experience. I kind of can't wait until in a few years we're able to look into the deeper parts of our mountain parks and go into some vegetation management mode. But continuing into 2022, what's shown in red here is primarily going to be funded through the Colorado State Forest Service grant. These treatment areas continue with our method of manual thinning, seeking to reduce Gamble oak stands by about 40 to 60%. And they will continue to be a combination of cut and pile with the hope that we can go back and burn. We may be able to get a masticator unit into a couple of these areas and break up those piles and not burn. Some piles will be left to decompose over time just based on whether or not there's safe areas to go back and burn the piles. And we are working with Southwest Conservation Corps crews to do some of these treatment areas. So this larger 9-acre parcel up here, we actually started this fall and spent 2 weeks out there with Southwest Conservation Corps. So that is, I think 6 of the 9 acres has already been treated this year. And then we'll pick up and continue in 2022 for the remaining areas shown in red. During this calendar year, we've done a lot of outreach and education, continuing to broaden awareness in our community of why it's so important to be reducing risk of fire and why focusing on the WUI is so key. The public engagement meetings we had, we mailed out about 254 letters. That was to host virtual public engagement meetings. We only had under 10 folks attend. But what seems to be the trend here is we have those public engagement meetings. We invite a lot of people. Those 254 addresses are the landowners adjacent to our treatment areas. So that number translates to number of residences that will be directly benefiting from this fuels reduction project. But once the Sawyer crews get out there and they fire up their chainsaws, then my phone seems to ring. So we're learning how best to reach out to folks, and we're definitely seeing a trend. So 2 public engagement meetings for those 254 letters. We had newspaper articles in the Durango Herald and the Telegraph, 4 of those that included our WUI treatment and also touched on other treatments from other land managers. We've given 1 public presentation to the City Council. I'm hoping we can get on their agenda yet this year, although that might be a heavy lift given how full the agendas are. But to be able to give them a similar presentation to what you're hearing on what was accomplished in 2021 and what we've got to roll out in 2022. And then we continue to keep our fire mitigation website updated to link those public engagement presentations and connect the community to all of the partners in our collaborative partnership. So that website, again, it's the city's website, durangogov.org/fire mitigation. Next steps, I'm in the process of writing scope of work for the remaining treatment areas that you had seen in red. Again, that's funded through the Colorado State Forest Service. I was excited to see how far and how fast the Southwest Conservation Corps crews could tackle those 9 acres. That's going to help me gauge how best to put that scope of work together. And then I've got a very tricky area along the Animas River corridor that is a combination of riparian vegetation and steep terrain. So I am hopeful that we're going to be able to use goats in that treatment area. I've been looking at our project partners that used goats over in Edgemont. For better or worse, the treatment area I'm looking at is only about 3.5 acres. I've heard from a lot of goat operators that they don't do parcel sizes that small or treatment sizes that small. So that's been a little bit of a hiccup as I write that scope of work on how do we treat that really tricky riparian corridor that's got steep, uneven terrain, a lot of vines, all kinds of things that just, I've had a couple of folks out there to evaluate whether or not it's safe for Sawyer crews to work. So it's a trickier scope of work than I was anticipating, but exciting nonetheless, because those are areas that need to be mitigated that we have not previously treated. So our hope is to be able to put the remaining treatment areas out to bid in the next couple of months for a spring kickoff, and then proceed with the remainder of those 45 acres in early spring. We have old burn piles located in Dalla Mountain Park from treatments we did years ago. That is a tricky mountain park to get burn permits from the state for because of a nursing home and rehab facility in that area. But we worked with DFPD and the state crews to repile those piles. We're underway on a burn permit, and our hope is to be able to burn off the piles in Dalla Mountain Park just this winter. And then always looking to the future, I'm already starting to plan treatment areas for the 2023 season. And then that would be continuing to use our BLM grant funds from the city. And then, you know, eyes on other funding opportunities, depending on what our next round of treatment areas will look like. So with that, can I answer any questions for anybody? You guys are making it way too easy on me. That is my email address, obviously, and then the same website that I showed earlier. I am happy to answer questions at any point. If anybody wants me to type my email address into the chat so you can copy and paste it, that's fine too. But I will stop screen sharing if that's better to see everybody's face. Hi, Pat Dorsey. I didn't see you join us there. So.
Yeah, thanks, Amy. I think we'll have some more time after Dina presents as well. So maybe that'll give some people some time to think about some questions as well.
Perfect.
All right, thanks.
All right. Amy's a pro at this, so let's see if I can make this work. All right. How's it look on you guys' end?
Looks good.
Okay. All right. So my name's Dina Harms. I work for the BLM Southwest District. I'm the Fire Mitigation Education Specialist. And a lot of you may have known Ian Barrett, who was our fire um, management specialist over on the Trace Rios field office. He did get a promotion, which we're really proud of him. And he is now our state fuels person. So my boss actually kind of talks to him to try to get money and stuff. So anyway, we really miss Ian, but we're happy that he was able to have this opportunity to move up in the organization. So, all right. So I wanted to start, I'm going to be talking about Animas Mountain project that we're doing, but I wanted to give you some background information of where this all came about. So in January of 2021, it was signed. It's basically, let me just move forward here so you can see. Oops. It's a hazardous fuels project, and it's something what we call an EA. So it's an environmental assessment, and it's, if you've ever heard of NEPA stuff, it's pretty much the same thing, just a different way of saying it. But the project area is all BLM land within La Plata County, which is about 22,027 acres. And then available treatment area is only 5,800 acres. In previous 2001 through 12, we had approved 5,638 acres. So some of those areas, treatment areas, are kind of the same. So when we look at a treatment area, there may be multiple entries within that treatment area. So some of our areas may have hand treatments or mechanical treatments done, and then maybe they just need burning, prescribed burning or pile burning to finish them up. So within acres, we can treat them multiple times. So a little confusing there. So different tools that we use is prescribed fire, which, pile burning, or landscape, which is what we're planning on doing up on Animas Mountain. Mechanical would be like a masticator, which kind of just mows the vegetation down. And then manual using chainsaws, chemicals like herbicides and stuff like that, and then just seeding afterwards if needed. This particular project is a 10-year plan, and positive scoping comments. So basically, when we go through these before they sign them and they're good for us to move forward on implementing anything, we have to go through scoping time periods where basically the public and any organizations can actually comment on it, and we have to address all that. So that's part of the process.
Dina, I think we're
Yep.
still on your first slide. I'm not sure if you had gone to another one yet.
Oh.
Did you push that down arrow? Maybe it just didn't
Yeah.
go.
Is that better?
No, we're still seeing the first one.
Okay, what about, well, let's see here. How about that?
Nope.
No.
Sometimes if you stop sharing and start again, I find that fixes the quirks, but that's just from my experience.
Okay, so just
It
let's see.
also looks like it might be a PDF or something, and it looks like you could scroll down.
Okay, let me see if that works better for you guys. How's that?
No, I saw your mouse move, but it didn't.
Nothing's
Is
moving.
it
Okay.
scrolling for you? Yeah, I maybe try resharing again and see if that helps.
Oops, let's see here. So stop share and okay. Is that better?
There we go. Now we're moving along. Okay, perfect.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. So that's just showing basically the number for the EA and then when it was signed. And then, yeah, then I talked about the acres and whatnot on that one. Whoops. So this is the map for the EA. So it's basically showing all of La Plata County, and the lime green colors are all the different units on there. And then I believe that would be Animas City Mountain right there. So, and then it just kind of shows, you know, different land ownership. Now this one is a little bit closer. It doesn't have all the units on it. But what it does show is a few newer ones, like this one and this one, haven't had any treatments in it. So those are proposed areas that in the future we plan on doing some treatments. Right now, Animas City Mountain is our #1 priority to do treatments in. And then we're looking at Grandview area, potentially for future, and then also Edgemont. So what have we done in the past for Animas City Mountain? So in the past, we've done some mastication. So all this green is mastication. So that's basically mowing down the vegetation. And then there's a few places where we actually did hand thinning. So that was done. So 2010 to 12. And now it's just that time to follow up that treatment with some broadcast burning on the landscape to break down that material that's there, and then to get rid of all that understory. And it just kind of, all those nutrients go back in to the soil once you're able to do that. So what is the current project? So this is kind of showing how we've broken down the units. So unit 1 is at the very top and unit 2. And then ideally, we would like to burn those 2 units first before we start burning anything. We weren't able to burn in the fall due to, it was just such a busy fire season. There wasn't anyone available to do so. So we didn't want to push that at all, not having enough resources to do it. And then it kind of felt a little too early too. But coming into the spring, we're hoping to be able to implement some burning. Units 1 and 2, I'll talk about this a little bit later in the presentation, but there's raptor nesting up there. And so those we will not be able to burn in the spring, but we can burn in the fall. So we have some wildlife closures that are in place that kind of limit when we can burn and that kind of stuff. So that's just something that is in most EAs, you know, some limitations that you have to work around. Because, you know, when it comes down to it, this is for, you know, wildlife habitat, fuels reduction for public safety. So there's a lot of things that we're trying to create and have that effect after we burn. So it's not just, we're just going to go burn. There's a reason why we burn, and we need to make sure that we're doing everything right before we actually, you know, light it up. So this is a breakdown over here of all the different units. This bottom unit, it sounds like this may not get burned. And then what they'll do is, ideally in a perfect world, we would try to burn in 2 days, doing ignitions. You know, that has to be like, well, let's see, like the smoke would be really good, so it's lifting and it's not settling. The conditions have to be great. So a lot of things are looked at why we're implementing this. So we're not going to say we're going to do exactly these units on this day. We need to figure out what our winds are doing, what the weather's doing, all kinds of things, and figure out which units we're going to burn first. So there's, you know, we have an idea. That's why we break them down in units. so we can decide which units we're going to burn at what point in time. So this is kind of a cool view, just from town looking up. So you can kind of see those units up here and how that's going to look when it's actually burning. And then this is just a view above it. So right now, and through the summer, we've had folks out there prepping. So they're using existing trails. They're widening, so any of the underbrush, they're cutting that back a little bit. So when we do light, we will light off like one of those existing trails. And so we don't want that vegetation super close to the trail. And, in the future, that stuff will be gone too, so it'll make it a little bit easier for mountain biking and hiking. You won't have that vegetation really close to the trails. Another thing we've done is created a few trails. So each unit area line, if we go back here, whoops, there's a line for each thing. So this is like a trail. So they did add a few new trails in there. They had the Craig Hotshots come in May and cut that out and then put tread in. So those will be new for, folks to use in the future. So not only, are we reducing the fuels and helping wildlife habitat, but, we're also looking at the recreational side of things when we're coming in and burning. So I took this last week. They were working up there. So the BLM and then the Southwest Conservation Crew, and then also the Colorado Division Fire Prevention Control, Grizzly Peak crew did a lot of work this summer too up there. So, and then once we implement, we'll have federal, state, and local resources usually helping. So what does, a burn program look like, or organization? So what it starts with, a lot of planning up front, which is what we're in right now. And then once they decide on windows of, hey, it looks good, we're going to go ahead and burn, you have to get your organization together. So you have to get your fire resources. For this particular burn, it's considered a type 1 burn. So we need a type 1 burn boss, which is the highest level you would have. As far as the burn, implementing the burn on the ground, that's not really the tricky part. The tricky part that elevates it is where it's placed in location to the city of Durango. So a lot of the stuff that we have done up front has been because we needed to do it for our smoke permit through the state. So there's a lot of upfront things that we do ahead of time. And this is not, I've done a lot of prescribed burns, and this is not your typical because it is so close to the city of Durango, and smoke is a huge concern. So we're doing a lot of planning, and we have NC web page, just like it was a large fire incident. So we're getting that information out to the public through that. So on burn day, there's always a briefing in the morning, and they're getting their instructions, they're getting their weather, how the whole plan is going to lay out, and how we're going to implement that. So crews are divided up to holding crews. Holding crews are the ones that are following the ignition crew. The ignition crew will have drip torches, like you see this guy over here. They're going to be the ones actually hand lighting the areas. So we do a black line on the outside. There's going to be holding crew folks that are always watching what we call the green, so the side that's not being burned, for any embers or anything that might ignite the other side that we don't want to burn. So they're doing all that, watching it. They'll be going back and forth on the line, just double checking everything to make sure that the fire is staying, we call it staying within the box that we've created. So, and then our ideal conditions are, you know, burning the stuff on the ground, and then of course what we call the ladder fuels, the brush and stuff, will start igniting. So it may go up, and then there's ponderosa there, and ponderosa has a thick bark that insulates it, so it can take fire, surface fire, very easily, and it will survive, no problem. You may see, you know, fire go up the bark a little ways, and it's almost like, it's just like trimming up the limbs if they're not already trimmed up in those areas. But it's amazing how ponderosa can survive surface fire, low severity, to up to some moderate. They don't like high severity fires. So that would be like a wildfire that's out of control and completely burning up in the crowns of the trees and stuff. So we're looking for low severity fire that stays fairly close to the ground, but does clean up some of the branches and whatnot on some of the ponderosas, and then cleans up the scrub oak or gamble oak. So down below here, you can see like before treatments. This is right after they've burned, so you don't see the flames, but then afterwards, you know, a year or two later, you know, vegetation starts coming back on that. Oops. So this is just diagrams. So up above here is high severity. So if you think of your wildfires, there's going to be a lot of heat. And then theoretically, if it was really out of control, you know, we've seen this all where these trees are going to be torched out and stuff. The end result is that when it starts raining, you may see debris flows if it's really steep. And a lot of this, your nutrients and stuff are coming out, and you might not get the regrowth that you're looking for. When we look at a prescribed burn, and we're looking at low severity with some moderate severity, you know, it's just wants to stay on the surface primarily, just like I talked about. And then what you're going to get is you're going to get that regrowth and those native grasses and forbs coming back in. And, you know, water's not going to like take the whole hillside down with it. It's just going to soak in like it's supposed to. So we definitely want that low severity kind of fire. And this is just a photo plot of, I guess it would be 3 years difference here. So this is before it was burned, and then this is after. So, you know, you're reducing some of the fuel, but the fuel is coming back. So that oak is going to come back. Your grasses will come back. So it might be black for a little bit, but it'll come back. So benefits. So the gamble oak, when we burn that, that's going to come back, and it's going to be easier for the wildlife to eat those leaves and stuff, which will help reduce the amount of oak that's in there. So it is providing them some food. And then your native grasses and forbs, sometimes with prescribed burns, especially areas that haven't been burned in a really long time, you'll see stuff come back that you've never seen before. It's kind of cool when you see that. And then we're just looking in the ponderosa to create that almost park-like look, because ponderosa like wide open spaces. They don't like to be really close together. So giving them that area to breathe, reducing the competition of water and nutrients helps them to get bigger and stuff. So yeah, and then wildlife benefits, just the opening up the area so wildlife can get in there is a great thing too. And when we think of burns, we're not burning the whole entire area. When you do a prescribed burn, you're going to have that mosaic look to it. So you're still going to have areas that stay green, while other areas are burned. And that's okay, and that's what we're looking for. We don't, plan on burning the whole thing and making it completely black. There will be areas of green pockets here and there. And the wildlife is amazing. They can adapt, especially to a low severity fire, whereas a wildfire that's out of control, it makes it a little bit harder for them to get out of the way. But animals do know how to adapt with fire, since fire is a part of our ecosystem and it always has been. So there's 3 closures. The raptor nesting in units 1 and 2. So those units will be out in the spring. And then the elk closure December 1st through April 15th. And then goshawk closure starts May 15th. Which basically burn window for us is going to be that April 15th through May 15th in the springtime. So it's going to be a little bit different. It's like this is going to be that time that we'll be able to burn. And then if we can't burn then we'll have to wait till the fall and hope we can do it then. So smoke is a big concern. Like I said earlier, that was the reason why we moved forward with a lot of our public engagement, was due to our smoke permit through the state. Every time we burn, we need a smoke permit. So whether it's pile burning or what we call broadcast burning, we have to get a permit through the state. And they give us the guidelines, basically, of how we're going to do that. So yeah, that's kind of on the federal end. I think our cities and counties might have some different ways that they do it, but federally wise, this is a requirement and we have a certain way of doing it, whereas the city might have a different way that they go about. They might go through the county to do certain things. So I can only speak for the federal side because that's all I've ever dealt with on that. So how do we plan on reducing or making sure that the whole city of Durango is not completely smoked out? Well, there's going to be some smoke. We know that for sure. But it's not going to be, or we don't plan it to be, like a wildland fire. So when you think of prescribed burn smoke, it's going to be for a short period of time, whereas a wildland fire is going to be a longer period of time, and it's going to be very uncomfortable, and there's no way to shut it down per se. With a prescribed burn, we already have these areas that we know, we're going to shut it down at. If it goes beyond one place, then we're like, okay, this is where we're going to work to stop this fire. So that the fire theoretically wouldn't be like moving or running like in a wildland fire where it's not controlled. It's just like moving as fast as possible. So that's one of it, keeping it at a low severity burning. Lighting early in the morning and then ending, late afternoon, early evening. So that gives everything time to just like burn and settle down. So we're not getting that much smoke within the city. The burn permit, like I said earlier, has guidelines on when the best air quality burn windows are going to be. So we follow those. The weather plays, no matter whether you're doing prescribed burning or wildland fire, weather plays a huge part in everything. So with a prescribed burn, it's a planned event. So we're really closely looking at the weather to see what's going to work for us on that. We have smoke monitors located in the Durango area that are permanent. And then there's also some other ones that aren't going to be permanent. They'll just be used for when we are going to be burning. And then just previous fuels treatment. Remember when I was talking about we did some mastication and stuff, or like 2012. So that reduces the understory, which helps to reduce some of the smoke too. So those are certain things that we look at. And then conditions of fuels, how wet they are and stuff like that. We'll look at those too. So public outreach, many of you, if you live in the city of Durango, probably received a postcard. We sent out close to 3,000 of them for an open house. Pretty much all the information, except for like talking to an individual, all that information is also on our NC Web page. So if you weren't able to attend, you can go to NC Web. You can look at our FAQ sheet and see if that answers your question. There's also, when you first get on the page, there's an overview page that explains a lot of different stuff. There is a link to that EA that I was talking about in the first part of the presentation. There's a link to that. So if you want to know more about the project areas and stuff like that, as far as in La Plata County, you can go to that document and it tells you everything that was discussed and you know what the plans are on that. So we did add that to that page. Will be photos. NC Web, just like a wildfire. Once we start burning, that's going to be a huge help for us to get information out to the public. Social media will also be. So the BLM Colorado and the Southwest District Facebook and Twitter pages. We'll be working with La Plata County OEM, and they'll be helping us get information out, knowing that most people, if that's who they would normally call, if something was going on, that's where they're going to call to. So we're working all that out, how that's going to work. But we'll have public information officers, more than you would normally have for a prescribed burn, just to answer those calls. We've had several news releases go out. And we have the open house, different presentations, RMRI and Four Rivers collaborations. So we've had quite a bit. And then Senator Bennett also came, and it was invite only to be able to attend there. And not only did the BLM talk, but also the Forest Service, and I believe Amy might have talked. I wasn't there. I was on a fire assignment, but so there's definitely Durango is an area that across the state they're looking at, you know, and you've had big, large fires in the past, and we want to hopefully avoid any of those in the future. So trying to get some mitigation work done, and it's you know, the vegetation grows back, so it's always the thing that just you have to keep up on once you start it. So, and then this is just the postcard that was sent out if you didn't see it. So next steps is we're still completing fire line preparation. So that's an ongoing thing up until we burn. And then their plan is to install an interpretive sign. They're going to do some new kiosks at the trailheads. So we'll have some new material up there. And then obviously outreach is ongoing. So there may be another open house in the future. And yeah, we'll just keep putting information out. And as it gets closer, you're definitely going to hear a lot more about it. So, and then we just been working with lots of different partners, which has been great. And then, yeah, so we hopefully will burn in the spring. Whether or not we can burn all of it, of course, we won't be able to burn units 1 and 2. So in the fall, we'd have to have a follow-up on that. So this is just information. If you haven't seen it, you could take a picture on your screen if you want. But the phone line is actually one that I set up, and that's designed that once we get more public information folks, we can add their phone numbers to that. And then this is one line that will ring to anyone that's available on the information team to answer those questions. Like Amy said, you know, you don't hear from anyone until you actually start doing something, and that's we know that's going to happen on that. So just trying to get as much information out to folks as possible. So is there any questions?
Free to unmute or put your question into the chat box. And I just wanted to check with Amy and Dina, are you guys good with me sharing these presentations too? So people have the links and email addresses?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, great. So we can make sure that everyone will get these that you can share with your neighborhoods. Definitely will be links in the e-news coming out in a week or so.
Should I stop sharing?
Sure, that would be great.
Okay.
Thank you. Any questions? Go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, I'm just imagining trying to share this with the neighborhood here at the ranch. And we have a common mail room that's got a real nice little poster area. And I just wondered, will it be possible, Deanna, to send out maybe something that we could just each print out, just a little, 8.5 by 11 thing that we can stick up in public areas in our neighborhoods just to let people know when this is happening?
Yeah, that the last screen that was up with all that information, I can get that to Ashley, and that's what that's designed for. I use it when I go out on wildland fires, when we're trying to get information out to the public to put on those info boards. And we found that it's great for people just everything's right there. They can just take a picture of it and then they have it. So yes, I can definitely do that.
We're up in Hermosa, the ranch, and so there's a good chance if when, not if, but when the smoke settles, it'll settle in the valley and we'll get it.
Yep.
But don't panic.
Right.
Start panicking. Thanks. Looks good.
Any other questions at this point? No? Well, Pat, did you have something?
I was just going to ask if we could offer congratulations to the BLM for trying to pull this off. I think it's monumental, and if we can do it near Durango, we can do it anywhere. So thank you for your hard work on this.
It's a great point. And Pat, I didn't know if you wanted to expand on your update here for the Forest Health Council, maybe explain a little bit about what that is and the good news that you kind of had there.
Yeah, so I was on my first Colorado Forest Health Council meeting today, and we had a bunch of conversation about what our charge is and get to know other members of the group and that kind of thing. It's basically a group appointed by the governor to advise the governor and the legislature on forest health issues. Southwest Colorado is lucky enough to have 3 people on the Forest Health Council. So I think a lot of times the West Slope kind of gets lost. I don't think we have a chance of doing that. We have Selwyn White Skunk, Aaron Kimple, and myself. And then we learned today that the state had some stimulus money for reducing wildfire risk. I think it was about $17.5 million. And they've chosen to focus it on the 3 RMRI areas, or Rocky Mountain Restoration Initiative areas, including Southwest Colorado. And then their other focus is 7 counties, one of which is La Plata County. So I don't know if that means we get twice as much money or what that means, but we should be in a pretty good spot for trying to get some work done around here. I thought it was pretty exciting news. They don't know exactly how it's going to roll out yet, but I'll definitely try to keep Ashley posted so she can keep you all informed.
Great. Yeah, that's really positive news. Good to hear. Okay, Charlie, did you have anything else?
Nope, nothing else from my end other than thank you to Amy and to Dina and Pat for all being on here and sharing those updates. and sharing the information about what you're doing. You're doing incredible work, and it's really inspiring to see all the kind of large scale projects that are happening. And just, yeah, hope to continue on with that in all the communities in the surrounding area. So thank you.
Yes, great, thanks. And one more chance for any questions, if anyone has anything. No? Okay, well, look for the update with the recording and the presentations, and we'll make sure that you guys have those available so you can share with your neighbors. And then Dina, if you have any other things that you want us to share and distribute, we'll make sure that we get those out to everybody.
Okay, I'll send them after this.
Okay, great. Well, thanks everyone for joining tonight. It was good to see all of you. Have a good evening.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody. Bye.
Goodbye.